over here.
That's what I was thinking.
Good morning, everyone.
Woo!
Hello. We have the lovely Ange and Nikki for their panel, The Wild World of Self-Publishing.
Sorry.
Echo.
I'm doubling.
No, that was me.
Oh.
My bad.
Sorry. He's like, I don't think I have it set up to echo.
No,
all right. No. You lovely ladies, take it away.
Woohoo!
Hello, everyone.
Hey there.
Okay. So, Nikki, maybe we should introduce who we are and why we're doing this panel. What do you think?
Sure. Yep. Sounds like a plan.
All right. So I'm Angela. If you haven't met me before, my CV in general is 3 pages of a dog's breakfast. However, I have worked for 2 small publishing companies and been in the middle of publishing my own work, which is very exciting and terrifying, as well as liaised with some much larger publishing companies to try and pitch some of the anthologies that I've had in my head forever. So I'm coming at this from sort of an internal look at the publishing world. I'm also totally open to talk. Well, I'm going to tell you what's happening in small publishing, but I'm also open to questions about small print presses and things like that. Okay. And that's me in a nutshell.
My name is Nikki. I have worked in editing for, I don't even know how many years at this point. My boss runs her own editorial company, and we're working into running a self-publishing press for her own books. I work as her editor. I've been doing that for a lot of years. I also do editing for traditional publishers, mostly in nonfiction and textbooks, but I have worked in fiction stories as well, mostly on the self-publishing side. So I'll sort of be looking into the editorial, like what are you looking for as for an editor? Because there are different types of editing. It's not just, hey, look, I know someone who knows English and they went through with spell check. We do a lot more than that. So if you're going to be looking for an editor, you might want to know what sort of service you're looking for to make sure you're getting what you want.
Oh my God, Nikki, that should be on a t-shirt.
You don't know how often we get that. Oh my God.
Actually, I can oh man. Oh, sorry. I was going to try and do my headphones, but my headphones fell off, or they're awful. I'm sure the cats have been chewing on them. No, okay. I just said that should be on a t-shirt. They didn't just go through it with spell check. Okay.
Sorry, the smallest side, I was going through my boss's work with spell check, and it keeps correcting things that should not be corrected, putting quote marks where it shouldn't be. It's like, stop.
I know, it's brutal. Absolutely brutal. So, okay, what I want to say about self-publishing is that it really used to be taboo. Everybody was 1000% convinced that no matter what, if you self-published something, it was going to be a flop and a complete disaster, and it wouldn't be good at all. And you know what? Gutenberg is a saint and all that jazz. But honestly, in the digital age, self-publishing is one of the best ways you can get your work out there. Now, do you have to bend on a knee to the almighty Bezos and Amazon altar? That depends on what you want your reach to be. And where your personal ethics are. But you can't really, beggars can't be choosers. And I'll be honest, the Amazon is unfortunately a very good publishing platform for self-published small works, things that other publishing presses don't want to see necessarily at the time. Like if novellas aren't popular, if anthologies aren't popular, you can always self-publish that digitally somewhere. So I just wanted to say that, self-publishing may have been verboten and taboo, but these days, it's actually one of the most cost-effective ways to start your own writing practice. But maybe that's just me. Nikki, how do you feel about self-publishing?
I would agree, as someone who has seen sort of both sides, and I talk to my boss a lot, who is also working with, some big publishers, and she feeds me the work. Publishing, they will generally go with what they think is safe. If you go to more smaller publishers, they might take risks on people, but the bigger names, you're like, oh, I'd love to get published by Simon & Schuster or Penguin. They are probably going to publish people that they know are going to make them a lot of money. It's sad, but we live in a capitalist society, and we can talk about that for hours. And unfortunately, even if they pick someone up who is smaller, they're not going to usually put the marketing budget behind them because they're like, well, they're probably not going to make us the money back. So people might not see your book anyway, which sucks. Whereas with self-publishing, as much as it's so much more work on you, because you have to be in charge of your own marketing, your own editing, all that jazz, you can still put out basically whatever you want. My boss, I won't go into the genre she writes because it's controversial to a lot of people, but no publisher is going to pick her up. So she either publishes her own stuff or finds an indie press that might be okay with that. But she's slowly building her own audience because she's, got the chops and she's putting her own work out on the internet. So
yeah. Well, and this is the thing. So working in small press, 1000%, it is blood, sweat, and tears. If you have ever worked for a small or indie publisher, the financial strain, and as well as your own personal strain, like mental, emotional, of trying to run a very small business with a massive global output is incredibly difficult. The people that I know that have been in small press publishing, like one of them was completely hosed by COVID because all of a sudden their shipper wouldn't ship. They're just like, nope, sorry, we're done. And so what a small press doesn't have another option or another way to get around that necessarily. They do not have the funds to, reset up an entire shipping section of their business. But as Nikki said, though, you absolutely do get people in small publishing who are far more willing to take a chance on something like, hell no, that sounds wicked. Let's do it. We're going to publish this. And that is awesome. Yep. And there's a lot of freedom in that. And it is fantastic. But you also then have to be prepared emotionally and psychologically for the fact that it could be a complete and utter flop. You might do a print run of 20,000 books and have 0 of them sell. And then you guys are out those 20,000 books and it's not going to go anywhere. And that is, I think for me, this ties in very closely to art. People ask me why I don't have an art business. Honestly, because I personally don't want to put the money and the time and the effort into marketing something that I think is important that nobody else is going to touch with a 10-foot pole. So for me, it's all about self-protection. And that comes to with the publishing. The reason I'm doing all of my own self-publishing is because the books and the things that I want to sell, I'd rather just do a print run of 100 at a time or 150 at a time. I can afford that. Yeah. And then I can disperse them where I want them to go. And then people can pick them up if they want them or not. Right. So I don't start. With 20,000. Please don't start with 20,000 books. In your
no. most publishers don't do 20,000. Oh my God.
Do not start with 20,000 books in your first print run ever, period. That was bad advice. Don't listen to me. But it's more just for me, for putting out my own work, it's a print run of 100 at a time. That's what I can afford. It goes through a local print house, which I really like. And then, I split up the books from the 4 places that I want to sell them, or I just give them out to people I like. To me, that's what I'm going for. But this is, where do I distribute them to? So the one book that I actually have in print right now is an introductory book on tarot, which may seem like too late and, a day late and $1 short, but they just go out to the 4 sort of local, spiritual stores that I visit or that I know of. And I just sort of split them up, 25 here, 25 there, 25 there, 25 there, and they go out, and then people can pick them up if they want. And I get a little bit of a kickback, but usually I just trade that in for store credit because there's always a new pretty tarot deck or some rocks or something else that I want. So I'm not in it. The other part of this is I'm not in it either for the money, which is also a very different perspective on this. This is not what I do anymore for my day job. When it was my day job, my job for one of the publishing presses was to try and do organizing the community, a little bit of social media, some editing and slush reading. And I did get paid for that a little bit, wasn't a ton, but I did like it. But these days, that's not actually either what I'm doing anymore because, to be honest, it was I couldn't afford to live on that. So I needed to go and get I had to go and get other jobs so I could support my small publishing habit was really what that turned into. Yeah. But Nikki, you said you've been doing this for years and it's been your prime job. So how would you say the work-life balance / the emotional mental health and wellness of your situation is?
It can be fun. If anyone has ever worked freelance, that's not streamlined. It is either going to be dry as a desert or like a blizzard outside that we're seeing today. So you sort of have to be prepared to find sort of that balance of, okay, I've got 5 manuscripts to edit or look over in the next, 2 weeks. And then, oh shit, I've got nothing until, May. So that can be sort of difficult as finding that work. And working with the authors directly can either be good or bad, depending on how amenable they are to your thoughts. Creators are sensitive, and you need to be mindful of that. But I know my boss goes through a lot of stress trying to keep that work-life balance. She is currently working with another press. I think it's Inanna Press. I'm not sure where they're located, but somewhere in Ontario. And while also trying to do her writing career. And her writing often has to compete because as much as her books are gaining an audience and she's starting to sell more, doing this for over 10 years, and she's only starting now to get an audience base. Her work is niche, so the audience is smaller. You have to keep that in mind. But, it's going to take a while before people find your stuff. People like to think of, oh, well, look at Twilight. Listen, Twilight didn't get big until the 3rd book.
Yeah.
So, and you got to remember, you were doing your own marketing, your own editing. So it's going to take a while for people to find you.
Yeah.
But yeah, as being in self-publishing, as much as it's great, you do have to be responsible for everything. And if you, need money for rent and car insurance and everything else, it can be difficult to make those decisions of, oh, well, I want to do my writing. I want to get my stuff out there. It's like, yes, but you might not get the money right away. You might not still publish if you want. So it's got to be a passion project more so.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, like, one of the biggest, for both of the publishing presses I worked with, and they were small, like very small guys. Well, one of them was sort of small, medium, but one of them was very small. And the biggest thing is that, like, I had to make hard choices working for both of them. Like Nikki was saying, like, you have to be really aware of the fact that it's like anybody here, which I know everybody in the audience, everybody here who has their own side hustle, who has their own small business, who has their own, presence online in whatever way. You think about all of the time, and that friggin' meme that was going around. It's like, are you going to really spend 2 hours just to make a 15-second video? Yeah, I am. That's exactly what self-publishing is like, because the reason that I'm going the route I am going for publishing my own work is because I don't have the time to be my own marketer. I don't have the time to build my own website. I do not, absolutely not have the funding for myself to put all this together and have that be my hustle. And working for other people for self-publishing, one of the things that I do more than anything is I try and connect people to resources. So if people...
Lindsay, you're not muted.
Lindsay,
oh, no.
We can hear you. Lindsay, we can hear you. Yeah, it is the tip of the large iceberg is, it's time sink. It is time sink all over the place. And it's also very much like, it's personal. It's all you. And when it doesn't go well, then you are left feeling as if you did something wrong. But in reality, it's like Picard says, you can do everything right and still lose. That is a total reality of that. You can do every single thing correctly and it can still not go anywhere. The fact that Twilight took off is honestly incredible. However you feel about those books and that movie. It's incredible that happened and that managed it. But like, that is absolutely not the case for everybody. And it's sort of like the myth of the millionaire in a lot of ways. Like, people don't just become a millionaire overnight. And the people that get like pushed up into stardom in the self-publishing world probably had people buying into it. Maybe they had some patrons. Maybe they had their own fundraising. Maybe they had a really successful Kickstarter that helped them get there. But it takes a lot of effort to push yourself there. And I don't want to scare people away from this, but I think to what Nikki was saying, like, you do have to manage your expectations on how fast, how soon, and when this is going to happen. Yeah, focus groups. Exactly. So like she shopped around her book. I'm not shopping around my book. I'm sorry. If you pick up my book and you like it, that's great. But if you don't like it, I don't give a shit.
But it also could be timing. Like, so another example I like to roll out on the video game side, Among Us came out in 2018, but I think most people didn't know what the hell that was until 2020 when the pandemic happened and everyone was at home trying to like, how do I play games with my friends, you know, on Twitch kind of thing.
Yep.
So you never really know what's going to, you know, catch people. And if you are working on a lot of books, you're like, screw it, I'm just going to publish what I want. If you have a backlog of books, because you've been publishing your stuff for, you know, several years, and then someone's like, oh, I found your stuff. Oh, you have a whole library here. Okay. And they go through it. Eventually you'll start building more and more views because you have work out there. Right. But, you know, time investment to get to that point.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so besides writing this tarot book, which I have, I haven't published anything else, to be honest, and you'll never find it online. I haven't put anything out there, but I write a lot of poetry, and I write a lot of spec fic, like speculative fiction, near future disasters, dystopia, but like quirky, funny dystopia. It's very niche. I've had a lot of people push me to publish my work. And again, it comes down to the fact that like the time sink on publishing my own work. And other people have said, though, why don't you submit it to Tor? Because Tor.com publishes weird genre. They have a great collection of novellas, anthologies, short stories. Because I don't write 50,000 words or more. I maybe get to 20,000 words, and that is that. That is the end of that. Not writing any more than 20,000 words. I refuse. And they were like, why don't you put it out there? Well, even when you're working with a big publishing company, a lot of this oomph still comes from your interaction with the editors, your ability to market your own work, your presence online. And that is like, that's a lot. And that's a whole different kind. It's like having an office job 9 to 5. You really got to be there. You got to be present. You got to be pushing yourself.
Yeah.
He says, I do runs about 30 to 50 copies of my zines. They're fun. Not the biggest time sink either, but I do need to advertise them better. I know, advertising. And it depends on the page count. Again, right? Like the advertising portion of this is unfortunately, well, you can do this. Actually, I shouldn't say you can't. You can do this. You can just take boxes of your books or zines around, go to your local bookstore and just be like, hey, will you feature this? And sometimes they will. I know like Macondo Books in Guelph used to be really good for that. The bookstore in Goderich that I'm now local to, which is the Book Peddler, they're great for that. All of the spiritual stores I go to, you have a book that you want to put up in their store, they're like, hell yeah, and they'll just take it and put it up. But if you want to do more than that, or you want to have it somehow cataloged, it does have to have an ISBN. You do have to have it registered if you want it to go out into any sort of proper storefront. And that is another whole thing that you're going to have to do on your own with self-publishing. And that's why people do default to Amazon, and why you use the Amazon platform for self-publishing, because it does a lot of that for you. It's automated it, which if you don't have the knowledge for it, that used to be a whole huge part of the publishing industry, was knowing how to catalog books and how to get them properly coded with an ISBN so that they fit their genre, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I have no idea how to advertise stuff. I don't either.
I mean, it really depends where you want to be. If it's online, it's just like any other product. Go to Twitter, go to other social media, pass it around, do features. Like if you have a YouTube channel, talk about your stuff. Like it's just letting people know it exists.
Mm-hmm. Then why am I watching this panel? I don't know. Why are you watching this panel? Don't ask me. I'm just here talking.
Listen, marketing was not the thing I took in my publishing.
I will say this though. So for marketing, a large part is, okay, actually, hold on. I do know a lot about marketing. I just don't want to do it for my day job, guys. I'm not a marketing part. This isn't Mad Men. I don't give a shit about marketing, but I do know how it works. So what you do with marketing, first off, it's a lot of knowing your moment. If you are writing a 1990s gothic vampire like ripoff of Anne Rice, that's great, but you got to know your market. So you have to know your moment. Is it relevant? Will it sell? Is it going to hit a button with what's going on in the world right now? Is it going to get people's attention for being relevant to their lives? Because if the answer is no, okay, then you're going for a niche audience. So you can still promote your book, but you're going to have to really double down on finding those groups of people who are hardcore into the Anne Rice romance novels, and you're going to have to specifically push your work out to that. Yeah, and that absolutely changes based on budget. like what you can do. So then you got to look at like, how are you positioning your wares or your book? How are you photographing it? Are you going the way of like, do you have your author photo on the back? Do you have the write-up? What are people looking for in their books? If this is an online content only, okay, so then you need a really snappy cover, and you need something that's going to grab people's attention if they're just scrolling through the Amazon library looking for their next, buy on there. And you have to be aware too that those are two different things. If you're looking at physical marketing versus online digital content only marketing, two very different worlds once again. And then you have to consider too, who's more likely to pick up my work. And then you have to pick out the arenas online where you want your ads to be seen, because you do need to put most of your money into marketing. Pretty much all of your budget is going to go into printing if it's physical, and marketing. Digitally, it's all going to go into marketing because you have to have people see it. So then you're like, do I get ad space on a podcast that's relevant to this? Do I get ad space on one of the fandom sites? Do I get ad space on Facebook? Who's the most likely audience to pick up my work, and where do they reside, and where are they looking for this? And that's where you buy ad space. Sorry, that's a bit of a rant, but that's how marketing works. I know it is a lot.
I was going to say another aspect too is your cover art. I've had a recent conversation with my boss where, props to this woman, she's putting money into her editing, but she got covers for her books on the cheap, and they're very bland. I don't want to, this isn't going to be like a rant roast type of stream, but the problem, I looked at them and went, it doesn't tell me that it's a romance book. If you are looking to hit a romance market, they're going to look at that cover and go, okay, and keep walking.
Yep.
Unfortunately, as much as I say, don't judge a book by its cover, people will judge the book by its cover all the time, because that is what the first thing they're probably going to see, other than maybe the spine, depending on how it's organized. But if you're, trying to get people to scroll through the bajillion books on Amazon and they see like a chair, they're probably not going to pick up your book. So you might want to look into finding an artist who can render a cover that's very unique, that sort of gives an essence of what your book is.
10,000%. And that's still part of your marketing budget. Your cover legit is part of your marketing budget. And I got really frustrated with one of the publishers I work for because of this, because they didn't want to give money to an artist to make a cover, and they thought they could just like slapdash something together, and they went on Fiverr to find artists. And I was like, I'm offended. I am actually super freaking upset right now, because as somebody who makes art, I maybe don't do digital art like this, but like if somebody went up on Fiverr and said, hey, can you make me a book cover for this that's going to have like a 50,000 copy run? I'd be like, hell no, you're looking for me on Fiverr? Like, this is my price point for that cover. You have to pay. You pay for what you get, guys. Like, if you're looking for something cheap, it's not going to sell your work, right? And minimalism is fine, but that's like for the fiction section. I'm sorry, I hate fiction, but like just like straight up fiction, not sci-fi, not fantasy, not genre fiction, just like it's fiction. I'm like, oh, so it's like not fun. It just makes it boring. I'm sorry.
Yep.
And nonfiction is worse. But yeah, pretty cover art. It's like, why? First off, why would you want to put your story under something that looks like trash? Why would you? I don't want my work covered by trash. Actually, I'm going to be a really bad person. Nikki, talk quickly about cover art for 1 second. I want to show you guys what I did for one of the books that I want to self-publish for my own cover art.
All right. So another thing, like also as a note with cover art, my boss did a particular type of cover art for one of the series that she's doing. But as we've been talking about, it is more minimalistic and doesn't do the typical, shirtless, muscular man with no head on the cover. So a lot of people aren't recognizing that she's writing, erotic romance books, because that's not what the cover is showing. There is a lot to say about genre. You might not like how a lot of genre does their covers, but they do it for a reason. It signifies to people, this is what I'm giving you. So if you're not doing that, you need to find other ways to go, hey, I am still giving you this. It's just not showing on the cover. One thing you can think about is tags. She hasn't really been tagging her books to be like, this is what you will receive. So that's another thing to keep in mind. Okay, your cover might not be what you want to represent your book, but hey, tags say this is what you're going to get. It's more marketing ideas. Okay, and
Okay. Oh, I'm not signed in. Apparently I can't
oh
answer
no,
the question in the chat because I'm not signed in. So
oh
great
no.
question from Basil and Barry. Is that right? Basil and Barry. In publishing, how do you normally source cover artist? So Nikki, how do you normally source a cover artist? What do you do first?
I don't. I work as the editor for my boss. She currently does her own cover art because she has, background in artistic stuff. But currently, she's been just looking around for artists to advertise doing covers. Mm-hmm. And that's, when you're doing online, there are so many artists you can commission. You just have to go find them. Yeah. So I don't think she actually went to a service. She just took to Twitter, looked at maybe other art. That's the other thing. She looked for authors who hired a cover artist and went, oh, who was your cover artist? Looked them up and then went to see what their services were. Yeah. So just sort of look around, find someone whose style you like. You might find an artist who doesn't do cover art specifically, but I have seen a lot of DeviantArt artists who go, I normally just do single-use art, but if you want to do commercial art, talk to me and here's what we'll do. I've commissioned an artist who's done cover art for manga before. So it's just a matter of looking around and finding who might be, who you want to have on the cover of your book.
Yeah. And absolutely right that ArtStation is a wonderful place to go looking for artists who do cover art. Personally, I usually, if I'm working for a publishing company and they're like, hey, do you know somebody who'd be a good cover artist? I'm lucky in that I've been involved with the literary world from like conventions as well, things like World Fantasy Con, at Astra, places where artists are already geared towards literature. So usually if you meet an artist at a place like that, you can go, hey, I really like this painting. Has it already been used? Like, is it already part of somebody else's IP? If it's not part of somebody else's property already, could I commission that to be part of my cover art? Or can I commission you to do my cover art? But they're already geared that way. If you have to go out in the wild, ArtStation would definitely be my first stop, or hunting down artists you like and just messaging them and say, hey, because I will say this, in Ontario, there are guidelines. If you go to the Ontario, what the hell is the name of it? The Ontario Council of Arts, OCA. If you go to the Ontario Council of Arts, hunt them down. I guys, if you've been to Kanji, you know that I do hunt people down. I can look like death on wheels if I feel like it, if I need to find somebody. But I do go to the Ontario Arts Council and look up what a reasonable payment is for those people. There are guidelines on the Ontario Arts Council webpage that you can go by if you're unsure what a fair wage is for something. It'll at least give you a ballpark range. Yeah. It tells you what's an equitable payment so that you're not short shifting somebody. Even if they say they'll do it for less, reinforce that, no, you don't do it for less. I don't give a shit if you're my best friend. Like, I've got friends who've offered me artwork for almost nothing. I'm like, no, like, I'm going to pay you.
Lindsay.
Yes, Lindsay. Yeah, I know. And if I can't afford to pay you, then I'm not getting the goods. Like, I'm sorry, but I try very hard to reinforce like the fact that your time and effort is worth something. I'm bad at it for myself, but I'm really great at it for my friends because people deserve to get paid for their work. Okay, so what I wanted to show you guys was, this is one of my little self-publishing projects. Ta-da! And it looks like shit. This is an anthology of works that I was going through, and I was trying to figure out, how do I make it look post-apocalyptic? Well, I've succeeded in making it look like trash. So that was great. But it was literally like it was a lino cut. But the whole point of it was to try and get this sort of Canticle of Leibowitz feel across, where it's this like, after the apocalypse has happened, or like the world is different, or, things are kind of falling apart. It was supposed to look rough. It was supposed to look a little bit janky. So I definitely succeeded in that because I didn't seal any of the other thing. But then I tried to make it look pretty on the inside. So this is me literally fudging around, trying to figure out how I would publish this and what I would even tell a publisher about how I want my book to look in the first place. And how I would try and find somebody who could work with me on that concept, because I realized it was much more of a conceptual book than just a genre book. And that's a whole other thing too, is like all of these things are one thing. Everything's connected. But you have to remember too that like you do need to know, going all the way back to the marketing conversation, you do need to know who your audience is. I know that the 50 people who are going to pick this up are going to be people who like the tactileness of the book, are going to be people who already like weird sci-fi or weird speculative fiction. They're going to be people who want an art object, maybe more than they want the actual writing. They might read the book, but they probably want it just for the look of it as much as anything. So it's actually more of an art book or an art piece than it is like a genre book. Yeah, because you go back and then you say, what the heck is this? Exactly. Which is so true. But yeah, so that's still part of knowing yourself. Know thyself, authors. Know thyself. Know what the heck you're trying to sell in the first place. I don't even care. You can publish whatever the hell you want. I am here for people self-publishing. But just know who you're trying to sell it to. Know who your audience is. It won't just be blanket appeal, sexy to like a global audience. You want to know who wants to pick up your book in the first place. So, I don't know. Nikki, what else should we talk about? Because I've now ranted about 78,000 things.
Lindsay had brought up, or Dart, I suppose, brought up the children's books as the same streams of publishing. Children's books, they're sort of a weird beast because you have to make sure that the reading level is where you want it for the audience that you're going for. If you're marketing towards a 4-year-old, it's going to be different than marketing towards a 10-year-old.
Yep.
And a lot of times, depending on the age group, stuff will have a lot more pictures. Yes. Because they learn better through visuals. So I haven't done a lot of editing on children's books because they are so specialized. You have to look not only at how you're organizing the words, the sentences, but also the pictures. Do the pictures speak to the kids? Mm-hmm. So I imagine you can still do that sort of stuff on self-publishing. I mean, really, you can self-publish anything you want. My big recommendation a lot of times is look at books that you like and try and see what you can jive with that style. Because if you like reading that book, you probably have an idea of what, you would like your book to look like.
Yeah. Do your homework. Oh, people probably hate everything that comes out of my mouth today, but do your homework. Research what you're trying to sell. You have to, okay. Say hi to your pupper for me. I miss having a dog. You got to research what you're trying to sell. And that includes books. Look at, again, know your moment. Look at what's popular right now. Look at the style that things are going for. Now you can do the kanji model where you look at everything, you say, most of this is baloney, and then you do it differently and you get better. And that's fair because that is kind of also what you're trying to do. If you're trying to outwit the market, part of that is doing your homework so you know what the biggest trend is, because you also know that trend is going to collapse. Things that get super ginormous overnight and are hella popular and all of a sudden they're everywhere have the staying power of a fruit fly. Like they're not going to last that long. That's the way the internet works these days. That's the way that fandom generally works these days. It's the next big thing, the next big thing, the next big thing. Yep. You don't necessarily have to have the hype train of the next big thing, but you do have to know what's on its way out the door and what is the next kind of cool popular thing. Twitter is a great place for that. You can get a decent read on it by reading fanfic, wherever you read fanfic, and see where people are moving towards. And also, obviously, like Tumblr, anywhere where people are putting up their artwork. That information, along with what you're seeing in the stores and what you're seeing as being sold and who's on the reading list this week, that will tell you what direction people are moving in. So whether or not whatever you're publishing is going to hit the moment and you'll be like, yeah, like people want to read this. This is great. Or if you're like, ooh, maybe actually I want to work on this story and get this out in the next 3 months so it hits that next trend coming up.
So another thing to think of as well is, do you want to write something that you know is popular right now? So follow the trend. Or if you're like, I really just want to get a story out there that I would want to read. Because yes. I find a lot of authors will go, well, I better just do the safe route and write what's popular. And that's fine. If you enjoy it, go for it. Like, that's awesome. But I also know some creators who have done the whole, I don't want to create this, but I know it's going to get me clicks, so I'll do it. And sometimes I find that dispassion will come out in your work. Versus if you're like, screw it. This is a story that if I were in a bookstore, I would pick up. Because trust me, there are going to be other authors out there or other creators, video game players, whatever. They are going to go, you know what? I've been looking for that too. Yep. So as one example, I hate it. I hate it so much in paranormal fiction where they write the love interest non-human creature as a human. Drives me bananas. The whole idea is that they're not human. So like, don't write them like that. But you would be surprised how much popular fiction through traditional publishers, that is exactly how they write them.
Yep.
So if you are going to chase that trend and you want a traditional publisher to pick you up, you are going to write your character like that because it's what the genre is doing. But if you're like me, it drives you crazy. You're like, no, I want to create a story where they're not like that because I'm tired of seeing it. You will probably find there are more people out there than you think who, thank God, someone's finally doing this. And that is sometimes how new trends will pick up because someone is finally tired of what's happening and will bring the new thing to the front.
I forget who said that. Somebody incredibly popular, I'm sure, but somebody did say, like, write the story you needed, or if you can't find the story you're looking for, write that story. And that's really why I wrote that tarot book, because I was thinking, like, what did I wish I had when I started reading tarot cards? It's not very long, and it's actually meant to be sort of like a workbook, so you can write your own notes and stuff in it. But the whole point of it was I was like, I don't, and this is the thing too, is it's going to get washed out. There's like 90 bajillion, 87,422 different tarot books and tarot sets out there now. I'm not doing it because I think it's going to be popular. I'm putting it out there because this is what I wish I had had when I started reading tarot cards, right? That is my whole impetus behind it. And, you know, if I somehow, like, if people really like it and I get to make a bit of cash on it, that's great. But really for me, I was just thinking about what did baby Ange need the first time baby Ange tarot card set, and it was this book. It was just like a really brief run through of everything, and there is absolutely value to that too. It's the same with these stories that I'm writing. There is absolutely value to publishing what you want to see in the world. I'm not trying to discredit that, but if you're looking at this from a business point of view, like Nikki said, those are two very different things. Publishing and putting out there what you want to see in the world is absolutely beautiful, and that's the only reason I make anything. However, the people that want to publish their work and be a rock star, or at least be on the train, you've got to follow the trends in that way.
Yeah. I mean, that's probably easier for Ange to answer than me.
It is very easy to self-publish on Amazon. It's all digital though. You can do print on demand, which is fine. There are definitely some okay websites for that, where you put your stuff up digitally, and then if people want to print a copy, they can. And now, so there are a lot of traps with that. And I don't know the best one. I used to use, I think it was Biblio was the one I used to use for print on demand, because there were some art books I wanted that were only print on demand. But from Amazon, if you're just putting up your digital content, it's actually very easy. You make an author profile. You know, I think there are limits for the first little while, or until you get so many downloads, on how much money you can make off of that, and whether or not it's free or $2.99 or it's $10.99, whatever. But they do streamline it. And I hate Jeff Bezos. I'm just going to preface this. I absolutely freaking hate that man. But I will say that the Amazon platform is one of the best ways to take that step into digital self-publishing, because they make it so easy for you to put your work out there. And that's really important, because ease of access, accessibility. If you don't know anything about publishing, you can't just ham it and throw it at the wall and hope to God somebody finds your website somewhere out there. Like, you know, you don't have the SEO engines that Amazon has. You don't have the platform to give yourself an ISBN number. You don't know how to catalog your work. So yeah, like Amazon is one of the best places to start putting out your stuff digitally. Now, I will say this too, it's different in the States versus Canada. Read the fine print, because I do not know what the fine print is on Amazon in terms of ownership of your work versus removing your work from the Amazon platform. I don't know that. And I'm not a lawyer, and I'm not going to try and give you advice on that. So read the freaking fine print, or go out and find somebody you know that's published through Amazon and talk to them, because there are other ways of disseminating your work. I know somebody who did it as a serial through Patreon and got a lot of attention for that. I know somebody else who did it as a serial through a podcast, and they read their own work and made it into like a 28-part podcast that everybody freaking loved, and then they published the book, right? Like, again, this falls under the umbrella of do your homework, but for Amazon especially, just be canty. Just be really, really canty about the fine print. I was going to ask, can you publish elsewhere? I don't know. Yeah. See, Basil and Berry, I have no idea if you can. And I'm not going to put my stuff on Amazon because this is the exhaustion coming through. I just don't give a shit. I just don't give a shit. I'm not putting it on Amazon myself. I don't feel like it. Fair. That's just me being salty. So I don't know what the rules and regulations are on trying to double publish something. I would imagine not, because it's very rare in the publishing world where you can republish a work outside of a very particular time limit, even from a magazine to a book, or from an anthology to a book, or from an anthology by somebody else to an anthology by yourself. There are a lot of rules about that come from the editors and the publishing houses. And they might say no. They might say if it's been published in a magazine, it can be published in a book, or if it's been published digitally, we might be able to publish it in a book, but maybe not. It's quite proprietary. And unfortunately, I don't have a better way to tell you that than just to be very careful. If you're hoping to double publish something, you've really got to be careful about what the restrictions are on that.
Yeah, like Ange said, just read the fine print. It could be that you get the rights back after a certain amount of time. So,
Yep.
you know, with print run, it can be until the books are gone or for so many years, at which point, you know, new publishers can pick it up, sort of thing.
Yep.
So see what Amazon says. You probably won't be able to keep it on Amazon if you're going to then publish it somewhere else.
Yep.
So you sort of have to pick one or the other. But if you are published on Amazon, you can, if you have a website, you have social media, you can link back to your book. So you might not be published elsewhere, but you can market yourself elsewhere and go, hey, here's where you find my book.
Yep. And that's still ease of access, because that means the audience knows exactly where to find your stuff. They go to Amazon, they look you up, blammo, they can find your book. And it's not hard to find your work, right? Because Amazon is a juggernaut. So if people can find Amazon, they can find your work. So you are capitalizing on it that way. The other thing I was going to say too about the limits of this. So when I was trying to build an anthology and trying to get, you know, cool writers that I was all excited about, and I was like contacting them like, oh, I'm talking to this person's agent. I'm so excited. Because I don't fangirl over actors. I fangirl over writers. I'm like, oh my God, I'm talking to Michael Carey's agent. When I was talking to all of these agents trying to put this together, they would have options, and they would say, okay, like this one just got off of a 10-year licensing with this property. Do you just want to reprint that story? And now I should have said yes to those things, because my anthology didn't even get up off the ground because I didn't say yes. I wanted original content, which is ballsy for a first-time anthology publisher.
Yes.
And they were like, no, we have this reprint if you want. I was like, I don't want to reprint. I want you to write me a whole new story. And they were like, what's your budget? Budget. So anyways, I made some mistakes. But the whole point was that, you know, most of the time, if you're gunning to be included in something, there will be a time limit on how long your work has been licensed to a place. Amazon for sure has that. Like I said, between magazines and anthologies, there's definitely those limitations. You just got to look up what the legalities of your contract were. And I was going to say this too: if you are self-publishing, really be mindful of the contracts you have on your work, whether that is with the shipping, the cover artist, the printers, the publishers. I don't care. Be really mindful. I would hate to see anybody get screwed by not being able to protect their own asses on this. Like, I have seen cover artists who pull their cover art after 1 year because that was as long as the contract was for. And then you have to reskin your entire book. And maybe you can't even sell the books that still have the old cover on it because you don't have a new contract with that artist. Make sure that you are really aware of what's riding on those contracts if you're self-publishing, because that eventually all comes back to you, right? And again, I'm not trying to scare people, but I find this in social work too. Cover your own ass first. Cover your own ass first, people. It sounds really bitchy, but it's the truth, because at the end of the day, if you're the one holding all of those contracts and something goes, goes screwy, you have to figure out how you're going to deal with that. So it is worth it if you're gunning, or if you're doing a bigger print run, or if you're moving in the direction of getting your work out there. Be really aware of what you've signed your name to and whether or not you may need counsel to change the parameters of what you're doing. That's like, that includes, because that's we see it all the time in fan fiction, right? When somebody gets come down on like a sack of hammers because they wrote about a property that somebody got really precious about, it got brought to their attention, and then that fan fiction author got hosed. We have seen that happen on Tumblr. We have seen that happen on AO3. We've seen that happen in a lot of places. So like, protect yourselves, you know?
Yeah. And it's also important, like this is sort of what, not that we'll go super deep into it because we've got, about 10 minutes left, but for the editing side, know what you're asking for. Yes. So if my boss had hired a couple of editors for the publishing company she's currently helping, and the work they produced was subpar, to put it lightly. So we had to redo the edits on some of these books. So if you are going out and asking an editor, hey, this is what I want, make sure you're clear to the person you're hiring, like, this is what I need you to do. So, for the different types of editing, if you want someone to look at your overall structure, don't ask them for a copy edit. Copy edit is mechanical. Overall structure is developmental edit. And if you're not making that clear, they might give you something that's not what you want, which means now you've just paid them a bunch of money and your book is no closer to being done than when you started.
Yeah.
Thank you, message. We know.
So Dart just asked.
Dart has a good, that's a good question. So
to sell in local shops, are they protected and copyrighted? No. And this I have not done yet because it's only the tarot book and I've only put out 25 copies so far. So I have not copyrighted it yet. However, this did come up because somebody asked me to do a bigger print run. And I was like, okay, then before I do a bigger print run and this gets out of Huron County, I am going to copyright this because I am quite aware of the fact that people will take a good idea they see. And if you do not have any protections for yourself, as I just said, they'll take it and they'll run and they might reskin it. So they can't technically legally be held accountable for plagiarism. But first off, I would even have to know that it happened in the first place. And instead my work could be getting tossed around as somebody else's. Mm-hmm. And so I actually am in the process of copywriting it. Now, all I'm doing is protecting it under Creative Commons. And there are different levels of that in Canada and in Ontario. If you're outside of Ontario, I don't know much about it, but it basically sort of falls under the same way as publishing a thesis. So you put it out there in Creative Commons, it's protected under your name, under that Creative Commons so people can cite it, but they can't just reskin it and resell it. So that's where I'm going with that. The sad thing is it could happen regardless. Abso-freaking-lutely. Yeah. Absolutely, it can happen regardless. And we have seen that. I mean, okay, this is a whole other panel, but there's a very fine line between plagiarism and archetypal trope writing. And it drives me freaking insane.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
It absolutely, and well, we've seen it too with like, so it's funny when it's in a meme or when it's in a fan comic when, we redraw like certain aspects of like a scene or something and we put new characters on it and that's funny. But then you think about all of the professional level work that is done and you recognize literal framing shots from an entirely different franchise in a new franchise. And you're like, that scene looks almost identical or like that frame looks almost identical. And plagiarism is a sticky subject because I also hate that you can be sued for plagiarizing yourself, which is a whole other problem. So, but I think that could be a whole other topic that Nikki and I cover.
Oh, absolutely. You could talk about that for hours.
Yes. Okay. So last thoughts on self-publishing, Nikki.
Well, one thing for if you're doing self-publishing, one thing I would recommend, if you need to save money on budget, try and look for beta readers. Just like with video game testing, beta testing, beta readers are great for doing, say, developmental edit stuff. Editors are good because what we do, we have a special skill set where we can go, hey, here's where we think it's not working, and here's what we suggest you can try doing to make it stronger. Mm-hmm. Most regular readers might not give you that extra feedback, but sometimes you don't need it. You're just like, oh, if the character arc is not working for 3 different beta readers, maybe you have to reevaluate the character arc and go back and just give it another read through. And it can be difficult if you've been sitting with the story for a while. You're like, no, I've got it. It's great. This is a great focus test. Your readers are coming back and telling you, nah, it's not flying. Another thing too is if you are producing a story that is outside of your lane, whether that's characters or narratives that are racial, cultural, sexuality, transgender, that sort of stuff, try and find a sensitivity reader. It might cost you money because they deserve to be paid for their time. But if representation is very important to you, find those sensitivity readers, because you want to make sure you are not doing something offensive. Now, to be clear, it happens. And if you cannot get a sensitivity reader, that also happens. But be open-minded, be prepared that if your stuff is found and people come back and go, hey, how you depicted this was bad.
Yep.
Take that, like, not even with a grain of salt, but just take that in, try and learn for next time. You know, those are the kinds of things that try and put them, you know, high on your list. Sensitivity reader if you want to go for the representation stuff.
10,000. I could not have said that better.
Yeah. Well, it's a conversation my boss and I have a lot, because she writes a lot of queer fiction, especially stuff that is outside of the norm. So she generally needs to find sensitivity readers as often as she possibly can, because it's important for her and for the integrity of her work and for herself, for me too, because I want to learn.
Yep.
You can very clearly see, white queer girl, sometimes I do need to get a lot of stuff. So sensitivity reading is important. But yeah, more to the point, beta readers can help you with a lot of stuff. Maybe not necessarily helping you on the copy editing side, but it is great to have that feedback if you're like, oh, okay, I really can't afford a developmental edit. Your friends can be beta readers. If you have friends who read a lot, they'd be like, you know what, your character sucks. And you might be upset because you're like, what the hell, man? But they're your friends, and you can take, you know, hopefully some criticism from them because they know.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Sorry, Dart's got a big what question mark. Uh-oh.
I think that was from way back. That was from way back about you can plagiarize yourself.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I just think I can't really add anything to that, because the sensitivity reading, we didn't even touch on that, but holy crap, people, if you're really going to write outside of your own personal lived experience, you absolutely need somebody else to help you inform your views and how you've written anything. You can't write somebody else's experience. You can only write what you know from your personal experience and from your own personal lens. And inclusion is important, but then you absolutely need somebody who is informed and somebody who is living that to help you look through their lens on what you have written. So yeah.
And I would say that sometimes even just doing your own research isn't enough. As someone, I've been very, very blessed to work on a lot of textbooks that have been written by Indigenous authors. And that's great. I've learned so much. However, if I'm going to write an Indigenous character, all that knowledge is not going to really properly translate into an accurate character or proper representation for an Indigenous person. And obviously, you know, minorities, they're not a monolith. Please don't go to one sensitivity reader and like, hey, I did my job.
Truth. Yes.
But you know, do the best you can. You know, and be open to be criticized, especially if representation is important to you.
Yep. Oh man. Okay, that is such a perfect place to end this. I am so happy.
Yeah.
If anybody wants to reach out in the chat or message me on Discord, my name in the chat is the same on Discord, so it's CoffeeShot87. If you want to ask or talk about anything that we said today in the panel, please reach out.
Same here.
Yep. We're talking.
My name is probably this in Discord, but
mine is CoffeeShot87, just like my name. It's me, Amadia. So you can find us there in the Discord chats for Kanji, and we'll see all you folks at the next great event. Lindsay, what's coming up next?
Oh, Lindsay's
I know Lindsay's getting ready to flip. Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Discord is so slow when I'm running Google Meet. Good gracious. Come on, Discord. Can I see? We are developing a cosplay. Woohoo!
Great. Fantastic. So I'll see all you guys around. And
thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yay, Lindsay's back.
Yay.
Sorry, I had to switch.
Woohoo!
All right.
All right. Take care, guys.
Okay. Peace out,
guys. Thank you so much, everybody. Take care.
Bye.